The ultimatum commander Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the research vessel Aurora, watching the strange purple sun of the Kepler 442 system cast long shadows across the ancient ruins below. For 6 months, her team of scientists and explorers had been excavating the site, uncovering mysteries that challenged everything humanity thought they knew about the galaxy. The ruins were old, not centuries old, but millennia old. Perhaps tens of thousands of years had passed since whoever built these structures had walked among them. The architecture was unlike anything in human records, all flowing curves and crystalline structures that seemed to grow from the planet's surface rather than being constructed upon it. Elena's reflection stared back at her from the reinforced window. She was 42 years old, with short black hair now showing streaks of gray, and eyes that had seen 3 decades of space exploration. She had discovered 12 new worlds during her career, but nothing compared to this. Her second officer, Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka, approached with a tablet in hand. The younger woman's face was troubled, which immediately put Elena on alert. Yuki was usually unflappable, the kind of person who could remain calm while the ship was falling apart around her. "Commander, we have a problem," Yuki said quietly. Long-range sensors detected multiple ships entering the system. Big ones. They're not broadcasting any identification, but the computer analyzed their engine signatures. They don't match anything in our database. Elena felt her stomach tighten. Humanity had been exploring space for nearly 200 years, and in all that time, they had never encountered another intelligent species. Oh, there were plenty of planets with life, even some with complex ecosystems and creatures that might one day evolve intelligence. But no one who could build ships, no one who could communicate, no one who could look humanity in the eye and say hello, until now apparently. "How long until they reach us?" Elena asked. 18 hours at their current speed. "They're not trying to hide their approach. If anything, they're making sure we see them coming." Elena nodded slowly. That could be interpreted as either a friendly gesture or a threatening one. She thought about all the first contact protocols that had been drilled into every space explorer. Stay calm. Attempt communication. Do not fire first. Assume good. Everyone trying to project calm while their hearts raced with fear and excitement. Then, finally, a transmission came through. The face that appeared on the main screen was humanoid, but distinctly alien. Pale blue skin, large eyes with vertical pupils, and a crest of what looked like bone running across the top of the skull. The being wore clothing that seemed to be made of living metal, shifting and flowing as it moved. "I am Overseer Zalthus of the Sovereignty," the alien said in perfect English, though Elena noticed the slight delay that suggested translation software at work. "You are humans from the planet Earth, third world in the Sol system. We have been monitoring your species since you achieved spaceflight." Elena stepped forward, keeping her voice steady. "I am Commander Elena Vasquez. On behalf of humanity, I welcome you. We've hoped for centuries to make contact with other intelligent life." Zalthus's expression didn't change. There was no warmth, no curiosity, nothing that suggested this was a momentous occasion. Instead, there was something Elena could only describe as cold calculation. "Your presence on this world is unauthorized," Zalthus said. "These ruins belong to the Sovereignty by right of discovery and salvage. You will cease all excavation immediately and depart this system within 24 hours. Elena felt anger flash through her, but she kept it under control. "With respect, Overseer. Humanity has been present in this system for 6 months. We detected no prior claims or markers indicating ownership. Under established principles of space law, human law is irrelevant," Zalthus interrupted. "The Sovereignty has existed for 200,000 of your years. We have explored and claimed thousands of star systems. Your species has barely ventured beyond your own solar neighborhood. You are children playing with fire, and we are here to ensure you do not burn yourselves or disturb matters beyond your understanding." "We're not children," Elena said, her voice harder now. "We're a sovereign species with the right to explore and learn. If you want to discuss sharing this site, we're open to negotiation. But we won't simply leave because you demand it." For the first time, Zalthus showed emotion, a thin smile that held no humor. "You misunderstand your position, Commander. This is not a negotiation. It is a directive. You will comply or you will be removed." The transmission ended abruptly. Elena stood staring at the blank screen, her mind racing. Around her, the bridge crew looked to her for guidance. "Yuki, get me Earth Command now," Elena ordered. "Priority Alpha, and begin preparations to evacuate the research team from the surface." Do it quietly and make sure all our data is backed up and transmitted home." Within hours, Earth's United Defense Council convened an emergency session. The council chamber, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, housed representatives from every nation and major space colony. Admiral James Okonkwo, a tall Nigerian man with gray hair and the bearing of someone who had spent his life in military service, stood before the assembled leaders. "The situation is clear," James said, his deep voice carrying easily through the chamber. "We've made first contact and it's not going well. The sovereignty, as they call themselves, is demanding we cease all expansion beyond our current colonial holdings. They want us to dismantle our deep space research programs and submit to their authority over what worlds we can and cannot visit." Secretary General Maria Santos leaned forward. The Brazilian diplomat had spent 30 years navigating Earth's complex political landscape, bringing together nations that had been enemies for centuries. "What do we know about them?" "Not much," James admitted. "Initial analysis of their ships suggests technology significantly more advanced than ours in some areas, particularly power generation and propulsion. However, Dr. Chen has some interesting observations." Dr. Marcus Chen stood up. He was a small man, barely 5.5 feet tall, with unruly black hair and glasses he wore more out of habit than necessity. As Earth's chief xenobiologist, he had spent his career studying alien life forms, always hoping that someday he would get to study intelligent aliens. Now that day had come, but not in the way he had imagined. "The sovereignty represents 12 different species," Marcus explained, bringing up holographic displays of the various aliens humanity had now encountered. "They claim to have existed for 200,000 years, which is impressive. However, I've analyzed their technology, their language patterns, and their approach to this situation. My conclusion is that they're not as advanced as they want us to believe." "Explain," Maria said. "They're stagnant," Marcus said simply. "Their technology is old, very old. They haven't innovated significantly in thousands of years. They rely on overwhelming numbers and technological superiority gained long ago. But humanity," he smiled, "we've gone from the first airplane to interstellar travel in less than 400 years. We innovate constantly. We adapt, we overcome, and that terrifies them." A British representative, Lord Edward Hastings, spoke up. "Are you suggesting we can compete militarily with an empire that spans thousands of worlds?" "I'm suggesting that if we have time to prepare, we can give them a fight they'll never forget," Marcus replied. "Commander Vasquez's team has been excavating ruins on Kepler 442b. Those ruins contain technology that predates the sovereignty. In fact, we believe those ruins were left by the species that the sovereignty conquered to become dominant in the first place. And some of that technology still works." The chamber erupted in discussion. Maria called for order and the debate raged for hours. Some argued for accepting the sovereignty's terms and hoping for better treatment in the future. Others insisted that any species that began negotiations with threats was not one to be trusted. Finally, the vote was called. By a narrow margin, Earth's leadership decided to refuse the sovereignty's demands. Elena received the news. While still orbiting Kepler 442b, the sovereignty had given Earth 90 days to comply, fully with their ultimatum. Humanity had chosen to use those 90 days differently. Every shipyard, every factory, every research facility went into overdrive. The technology recovered from the ruins was analyzed, reverse-engineered, and adapted to human systems. Admiral James Okonkwo took command of Earth's defense forces. He had fought in the Mars Independence War, the Belt conflicts, and the Titan Uprising. He had spent his entire life preparing for war, just never expecting it to be against aliens. As the deadline approached, Elena stood once again on the Aurora's observation deck. Below, the ruins had been stripped of everything valuable. The ancient technology had been transported to secure facilities throughout human space. Whatever happened next, humanity would face it with their eyes open and their weapons ready. On the 89th day, Elena received a final transmission from Earth. Her younger brother, Miguel, who worked in the Orbital Defense Network, sent a personal message. "Whatever happens, Hermana, I'm proud to stand with you. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. We'll survive this too. We're not the children they think we are." When the 90 days expired, Elena transmitted Earth's response to the Sovereignty Fleet. The message was simple and was broadcast across every frequency, in every language humanity spoke. "The United Nations of Earth respectfully declines the Sovereignty's ultimatum. Humanity will remain free to explore, to learn, and to grow. We seek peace, but we will not purchase it with our freedom. If the sovereignty wishes to continue discussions as equals, we welcome dialogue. If they choose war, they will learn what humanity is capable of when we fight for our survival. The response came within minutes. Overseer Zalthis appeared on screen once more, and this time his expression was one of cold anger. "You have chosen extinction," he said. "The sovereignty will now demonstrate why no species defies us. Your worlds will burn, your people will serve, and your name will become a warning to others who think themselves equal to their betters." Elena felt fear, certainly, but beneath it was something stronger: determination. Humanity had been underestimated throughout its existence. Every empire that had tried to conquer them had learned a hard lesson. Perhaps it was time the sovereignty learned that same lesson. "Then come," Elena said quietly, "and we'll show you what happens when you declare war on humanity." The reckoning. The sovereignty's war fleet arrived at Titan Station exactly 3 weeks after Earth's refusal. Admiral James Okonkwo watched from the command center of the Indomitable, Earth's newest and largest warship, as enemy vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Titan Station orbited Saturn's largest moon, serving as humanity's primary military installation in the outer solar system. It housed 20,000 personnel, extensive shipyards, and enough weapons to defend against any threat humanity had previously imagined. But as James studied the approaching fleet, he wondered if they had imagined big enough. 500 ships. The sovereignty hadn't sent a raiding party or a demonstration force. They had sent an armada designed to crush any opposition utterly and completely. "All stations report ready," his tactical officer, Commander Sarah Reeves, announced. The red-haired Australian woman had been at James's side for 15 years, through every conflict that had shaped humanity's expansion into space. "Titan Station's defensive grid is online. Our fleet is positioned according to plan. Civilian evacuation to the inner colonies is 95% complete." James nodded, not taking his eyes off the display. "Open a channel to all ships. It's time they heard what we have to say." Throughout the human fleet, crews paused at their stations as James's voice came through every speaker. 50 years ago, I was a young lieutenant serving on a transport ship. We got caught in a solar storm that damaged our engines. We were stranded and rescue was days away. I remember thinking we were going to die out there in the dark. But our chief engineer, a woman named Amara Okafor, refused to accept that. She jury-rigged a solution using parts that were never meant to work together. It shouldn't have functioned, but it did, because she refused to give up. We made it home. He paused, letting the memory settle. That's what humanity does. We adapt, we innovate, we survive. The sovereignty thinks they can frighten us into submission by showing up with more ships and bigger guns. They think technology thousands of years old makes them invincible. They're about to learn why betting against human survival has always been a losing proposition. All ships weapons free. Show them what we've built. The sovereignty fleet advanced in a standard encirclement pattern, a formation that had served them well for millennia. Overseer Zalthis commanded from his flagship, the Eternal Dominance, a vessel 10 kilometers long that had led campaigns against dozens of species. "The humans have approximately 100 ships," his tactical officer reported. "Their formation is scattered, almost disorganized. They appear to be panicking." Zalthis permitted himself a moment of satisfaction. Another species would learn the price of defiance. "All batteries prepare to fire. We will disable their station first, then systematically destroy their fleet. I want survivors captured for public execution. The rest of the galaxy must see what happens to those who challenge us." Then something unexpected happened. The human ships didn't retreat or hold formation. Instead, they accelerated forward at speeds that should have been impossible for vessels of their size. Zalthis watched in confusion as they closed the distance between the two fleets in a fraction of the expected time. "Sir, their acceleration rates are exceeding our projections by 300%, his officer said, alarm creeping into his voice. "How are they generating that much thrust?" The answer became clear when the first human ship opened fire. The weapon that emerged from its forward batteries wasn't an energy beam or conventional missiles. It was something entirely different. A projectile that tore through space at near light speed, leaving a visible distortion in its wake. The projectile struck a sovereignty cruiser. The ship's shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and absorb kinetic impacts, simply ceased to exist. The weapon punched through the hull like paper, and the cruiser broke apart, its reactor breaching in a flash of blue-white light. "What was that?" Zalthus demanded. "Report!" Before anyone could answer, 20 more human ships fired the same weapon. 20 more sovereignty vessels died in seconds. The ancient empire's armada, which had conquered countless worlds, found itself suddenly vulnerable. On the Indomitable, James watched with grim satisfaction as the first volley found their targets. Status on the mass drivers? "All functional," Sarah reported. "The technology from the Kepler ruins integrated perfectly with our systems. Each projectile is essentially a miniature asteroid accelerated to 0.99% light speed. At those velocities, shields are meaningless. Keep firing," James ordered. "Target their capital ships, and launch the drones." From launch bays across the human fleet, thousands of small craft erupted into space. These weren't manned fighters. They were autonomous drones, each one guided by advanced artificial intelligence that humanity had been developing for decades. The Sovereignty had nothing comparable. Their automated systems were crude by comparison, legacy technology from species they had conquered long ago. The drones swarmed the Sovereignty fleet like angry insects, each one small enough to evade point defense but carrying enough explosive power to cripple a ship if it hit a vulnerable point, and the AI controlling them was smart enough to find those vulnerable points. Zalthus watched in growing horror as his fleet, the pride of the Sovereignty, began to fall apart. Ships that had served for thousands of years were being torn to pieces by weapons they had never encountered, tactics they had never faced. "All ships, emergency withdrawal," he ordered. "Fall back to Rally Point Delta." But the retreat was chaos. Human ships pursued with relentless efficiency, their superior acceleration allowing them to chase down vessels trying to escape. The drones harried them every step of the way. Of the 500 ships that had arrived, fewer than 300 made it out of the battle zone. Elena Vasquez watched the battle from the Aurora, which had been repositioned to a safe distance from Titan Station. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Chen observed the tactical displays with professional interest. "The ruins held more than just weapons technology," Marcus said quietly. "We found their propulsion systems, their power generation methods, and something else. Knowledge. The species that built those ruins, they understood physics in ways we're only beginning to grasp. They knew how to manipulate gravity, how to generate power from the quantum foam of space itself. The Sovereignty inherited some of that technology, but they never truly understood it. They've been using tools without comprehending the principles behind them." "And we do?" Elena asked. Marcus smiled. "We're learning. Humans have always been good at taking existing knowledge and improving on it. Give us another year and we'll surpass anything the Sovereignty has." The battle at Titan Station was a devastating blow to the Sovereignty, but it wasn't the end. Over the following months, fighting spread across human space. The Sovereignty, desperate to salvage their reputation, threw more ships into the conflict. But each battle followed the same pattern. Human forces, outnumbered but technologically superior in key areas, would inflict disproportionate casualties. Admiral James Okonkwo found himself commanding humanity's largest military operation in history. He coordinated defenses across dozens of star systems, always staying one step ahead of the enemy. His reputation grew with each victory, and the Sovereignty began to speak of him with a mixture of fear and respect they usually reserved for natural disasters. 6 months into the war, the decisive moment came. Human intelligence discovered the location of the Sovereignty's primary military command center, a space station orbiting their capital world. James proposed a bold plan. Rather than wait for the Sovereignty to attack, humanity would strike at the heart of their empire. The mission was given to Elena Vasquez. The Aurora, equipped with new stealth technology developed from the ruins, would lead a strike force deep into Sovereignty space. Their objective was not to destroy the command center, but to deliver a message that could not be ignored. The journey took 3 weeks, moving through Sovereignty territory while avoiding their patrols. Elena felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. If this mission failed, the war might drag on for years, costing millions of lives on both sides. Finally, they arrived at the Sovereignty homeworld. The planet below was beautiful, covered in purple vegetation and silver oceans. The command station orbited like a small moon, a structure that had coordinated military campaigns for 50,000 years. Elena transmitted the message that Earth's leadership had prepared. It was addressed to Overseer Zalthis and the ruling council of the sovereignty. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of Earth. Our ships currently have weapons locked on your command center. We could destroy it. We could demonstrate that nowhere in your empire is safe from us. But we're not here to destroy. We're here to offer peace. She paused, knowing her next words would determine the fate of both civilizations. You began this war because you saw humanity as a threat to your power. You were right to be concerned, but wrong about the nature of that threat. We don't want to conquer you. We don't want to rule your worlds. We simply want to exist, to grow, to learn. The ruins we found on Kepler 442b belong to your predecessors, the species you conquered to build your empire. They're gone now, erased from history. Do you want that to be your fate too? On the sovereignty capital, Zalthis watched the human ship hovering above his world with weapons trained on the command center. He had spent months trying to understand these creatures, and had finally reached a terrible conclusion. They were not like other species the sovereignty had encountered. They didn't fight for territory or resources. They fought for something more abstract and more dangerous. They fought for the right to determine their own future, and they were willing to do whatever it took to preserve that right. The council convened in emergency session. For the first time in thousands of years, they faced an enemy they could not defeat through simple superiority of numbers. The debate raged for hours, with some counselors demanding continued war while others recognized reality. Humanity could not be conquered, not without losses that would cripple the sovereignty for generations. Finally, Zalthis himself spoke. I have fought in 50 campaigns. I have seen species bow before our might without resistance. But these humans, they are different. They adapt too quickly. They learn too fast. They refuse to accept defeat. Every battle teaches them new lessons, and they apply those lessons immediately. If we continue this war, even if we eventually win, we will bleed ourselves white in the process. And there are others in the galaxy, species we have held in check for centuries, who watch and wait for us to show weakness. The vote was close, but ultimately pragmatism won. The sovereignty agreed to peace negotiations. 3 months later, representatives from both sides met on a neutral space station. The treaty that emerged recognized humanity's right to expand and explore without interference. The sovereignty would maintain their existing territory, but they would not hinder human growth. Trade agreements were established. Cultural exchanges were arranged. The war that had threatened to destroy both civilizations ended not with conquest, but with mutual recognition. Admiral James Okonkwo attended the signing ceremony. As he watched Overseer Zalthis put his mark on the treaty, the alien leader spoke quietly. You have taught us a valuable lesson, Admiral. Power is not measured only in the age of an empire or the size of its fleet. True power comes from the will to adapt, to change, to overcome. We had forgotten that lesson over the centuries. Perhaps it is good that you reminded us. James nodded. We don't want to be your enemies, Overseer. We never did. But we also won't be your subjects. Equals or nothing. Equals, Zalthis agreed. Back on Earth, Elena Vasquez stood in the museum that had been established to honor those who fell during the war. The walls displayed artifacts from the conflict, alongside images of the ancient ruins that had provided humanity with the tools they needed to survive. She thought about the species that had built those ruins, gone now but not forgotten. They had left behind a final gift, knowledge that had saved humanity. A young girl tugged on her sleeve. Are the aliens our friends now? She asked. Elena smiled. Some are friends, some are just neighbors. But they all know one thing. Humanity is here to stay. As she walked out of the museum into the bright sunlight, Elena looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, human ships were exploring new worlds, making new discoveries, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The sovereignty had declared war to stop humanity's growth. Instead, they had triggered something far more profound. They had forced humanity to reach their full potential, and in doing so, had ensured that Earth's children would never again be underestimated. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and dangers yet undiscovered, but humanity was ready. They had proven that innovation could overcome age, that determination could defeat numbers, and that the human spirit, once awakened, could not be extinguished. The war was over. The future had just begun.